Welcome back, everybody. I'm Carissa Kranz, and this is another week of The Laws That Matter. Today, we have an amazing guest, so I'm super excited to introduce him, Dr. Sailesh Rao, founder of Climate Healers, author of 2 books, producer of 4 documentaries, the person behind some great white papers, and I have heard so much about you. I've seen you on so many documentaries. I'm so humbled to be in your presence. It's truly an honor to have you on today and to talk to you. So much to talk about. I mean, you have so much words of wisdom that an hour could not possibly even begin to cover everything that you could enlighten the world with. So I want to start with the greatest transformation in human history. What does that mean to you?
Well, it means that we all have to achieve our objectives, whether it is the Black Lives Matter or the Me Too movement, whether it's the vegan movement, whether it's the peace movement. So we all have to achieve our objectives. And we are all climbing up this mountain from different angles. And as Pierre Teilhard de Chardin said, as we raise our consciousness and climb up, we will eventually reach the summit, and it will be the same summit for all of us. And that, to me, is the greatest transformation in human history that has to happen. Even the climate movement, right, is working on trying to solve climate change. So we are all working for the same objective, which is to get to a place where we all thrive on life, in life. And it's very simple. How do you thrive in life? James Lovelock said that. He said, you thrive when you routinely give more than you take from nature.
That's nice. You routinely give more than you take. I like to say that, we're here in service of our purpose, right, and in service of our planet. So what was your shift?
So for me, the shift happened.
Everybody, but
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the rest of your question.
Yeah, I think there's a delay. I was going to say, we all know you're a great icon within the vegan movement, but maybe not everyone who's watching is aware of the vegan movement, and they should know who you are and how you came to be. So how did you come into your shift of being part of the transformation and the vegan movement?
Okay. It's a good question. I'm a systems specialist. I'm an engineer. I used to work on the internet back in the 90s when people really didn't even know what it was. And then in 2005, I was working on 10 gigabit Ethernet, doing the same thing 10 times faster. And I came home one day and I saw Al Gore's presentation on TV, and I was shocked.
Was that the Inconvenient Truth presentation?
Yes, it was before the Inconvenient Truth movie came out. He was just giving a presentation to a group of people in San Francisco, and someone had videotaped it and put it on a public access channel.
Oh, okay.
And so I was just watching it, and I was stunned. I told my wife, if half of what he's saying is true, I'm wasting my time. So I decided to look into it, and I realized it's far worse. So I closed my company and I stopped working on 10 gigabit Ethernet and started looking into this full time. And I wrote to Mr. Gore and I said, how can I help you? And so then I got trained by him. I was part of the second batch that he trained to give his presentation. And then very soon I realized that, we were not talking about the entire problem. We were only talking about energy, as part of the Inconvenient Truth. Whereas this is an entire lifestyle issue. So I started, because I'm a systems specialist, I'm able to put things together from different areas and come up with a larger truth,
Right. So the Al Gore Inconvenient Truth, I remember when that documentary came out and I saw it, it didn't really mention anything about what you address in your white paper.
Right. Yeah, so even during the training, I asked him a question about it, and he sort of brushed me aside, So I realized that there were some things that he didn't want to talk about.
Because it was an even more inconvenient truth.
Exactly, yeah. So I looked into it, because I had no one pulling strings on me, so I could do what I wanted. So
Yeah.
I started looking into it full time, and I began to realize that what we eat is at the root of it. So I became vegan in 2008, soon after I discovered this truth. And
Now, before that, were you vegetarian?
yes, I was lacto-vegetarian. So I was
Okay.
trying to convince myself that drinking milk or eating dairy products is not such a big problem, right? Because that's how it is framed in the scientific literature also. If you look at the ecological footprint of dairy, it's not that bad,
Mm-hmm.
So a lacto-vegetarian is only a little bit worse than vegan, right? That's how they present it. But in reality, it is actually far worse because what they're ignoring is the opportunity cost.
Right.
And so what I mean by opportunity cost is if you didn't have to grow those cows, you didn't have to raise those cows, what could you do with that land? Could you not bring back the forest that used to be there? Could you not bring back the wildlife that used to be there? And therefore, you can sequester all that extra carbon in trees.
Mm-hmm.
So that opportunity cost was being missed everywhere.
Yeah. One thing I remember in your white paper, and I read it a few months ago, but it really stuck with me, is how skewed the statistics really are, because it's not taking into account the fact that not only it is taking into account that the trees are being cleared, but it's not taking into account how, if those trees were there, how they would actually work to absorb the carbon in the atmosphere. And you had all sorts of statistics that are not published anywhere else. That's truly groundbreaking. We've got to get the word out. I mean, amazing thought behind that.
Well, thank you. Though the statistics that I'm using came straight from reputable sources. So all I'm doing is putting the numbers together, okay, in the white paper. Every statistic that I use, I have references to where I got that from. It's either from the UN IPCC or other peer-reviewed sources. The reason people are not putting it together is because there is this fundamental drive to preserve our way of life, especially among the people who are doing well in the current way of life, right? Who are just sitting in front of a computer. Huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a delay here. I was going to say, it's so ironic because to preserve our way of life, in essence, is actually killing our entire planet. So there will be no preservation of life if we continue trying to preserve our way of life. If we want to preserve our way of life, we actually need to heed the advice and the real statistics that are the inconvenient truth, but that you're shedding light on.
Right. Now, what I mean by preserving the way of life is preserving the way of life for those who are making those decisions, like Al Gore, right? So because he has a lot of power in the current system, he has a lot of wealth in the current system, and he doesn't want to give that up, maybe, So who knows what the motivations are, right? But ultimately, it's about, I know where I am, and I like where I am, and I don't want to change that, right? So that motivation then drives the way we present the truth. Unfortunately, that's the kind of system we have today, right? We have a system in which we have oppositional truths, and we have to then figure out, each one of us has to figure out who's really telling the truth, because they both cannot be true, right? That's the kind of legal system we have today too, right? So the defense attorney cannot go to the court and say, actually, my client is guilty.
Right. No, right. It's the negotiation.
He will be taken and disbarred, right? It will be disbarred for saying that.
Right. You have to zealously represent your client and advocate for their interests. Yes, absolutely. Well, and tell us about how you got the shift. You became enlightened. You were already vegetarian. Then you woke up, you became vegan. You started doing your research. You're a systems guy. You're obviously really smart already to piece it together and can build systems. And then you launched this whole concept of Vegan World 2026 based on systematic approaches into creating a vegan world that can actually happen that quickly. Tell us about that. How can that happen so quickly to so many people? That just seems so unrealistic, even though we want a vegan world. How do you make that happen by 2026?
Yeah, first of all, I was doing research to figure out how soon do we have to get there, right? So I knew that we all have to change, but I didn't know how soon has this transformation have to happen. And I keep seeing statistics saying, 2050 or 2048, all the fishes are going to die out. 2100, half of the species on the planet will go extinct. Statistics like that, right? But then I started looking into statistics on our, biomass of animals in our weight class. So we are about 50 kgs 68 kgs in average weight, okay? Mm-hmm. So any animal that's greater than 44 kgs in average weight, those are called megafauna. So I started looking into their statistics because those are the ones that we are displacing in the ecosystem, right? Because we are not only our weight is growing because our population is growing, we are also raising all these animals that are in the same weight class, like cows and pigs and sheep. They're roughly in our weight class, right? So they're also megafauna, and we are raising so many of them, and they're taking up all the room in the ecosystem. So there is not enough room for the other wild animals. So I started looking into their statistics, and that turns out that is going down so fast that we are on track to wipe them out by 2026. Okay, so I made that calculation in 2014. So it's just that segment of animals. If you look at their weight, they're declining extremely fast. They are down by almost 90% from their original levels today. Okay, so you ask.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying you asked. If they're down 90%, are they really viable still? I mean, you get to a point where the tiger does not meet the tigress anymore, and they cannot have babies. Right? Or lion cannot meet the lioness anymore because they're too far apart. So when we have a situation like that, we pretty much are seeing the ecosystem just collapse on its own. So there is a point beyond which it collapses on its own. But even if you assume it doesn't collapse, by 2026, we are on track to wipe almost all of them out. And that is tragic, right? So I made that calculation first in 2014, and I was shocked. I said, why isn't everybody talking about this? So then I started looking into the literature, and I saw that they were all using a different model, right? They were using a model called predator-prey model, in which once the prey population declines, predator population will also decline because there is not enough prey for the predator to eat.
So since you've started these statistics and taken on this mission, has there been a shift to recorrect, or are we on a trajectory of complete destruction still?
Well, we are still on the same trajectory. Okay, I did this calculation first in 2014. Then I said I'll wait until I can confirm that with the next set of statistics that's going to come out in 2016. And I did that, and it confirmed what I was calculating, right? That's when I was saying, I said, we have to do something about this because it's going down so fast. It was already 80% down by 2010, and it was down by 82% by 2012. So it's going down like by 2% per year or 1% per year, okay, from the original levels that used to exist 10,000 years ago. And at that rate, we are on track to wipe them all out by 2026. So I had done that calculation, and at night I was reading a story to my granddaughter in bed. And at the end of the story, she asked me, Grandpa, who were the first human beings? And I have promised her that I'll never ever lie to her. So I said, okay, imagine that you're standing on the street and you're holding your mother by a hand, and you ask your mother to bring her mother to stand by her side, and so on. You create a long line of mothers on this side of the street. And on the other side of the street, you ask a chimpanzee to do the same thing with her mother and her grandmother, and so on. By the time these two lines go from Phoenix to Tucson, they would merge, because both sides are going to say, that's my mother too. Immediately, she just sat up in bed and she said, what? Are you telling me that animals are my family?
Aww.
And I said, now that you put it that way, yeah, they are your family. See, that's the thing about raising a vegan child, is that she's seeing things in perspectives that I had blocked out, right? So she told me right away, hey, that means that animals are my family. Then why are people eating
I was born and raised vegan. Did you know that?
I knew that. I knew you would appreciate that, because she's seeing things that I never saw, that I had blocked out. So she's opening my eyes every year. Every day that she's talking to me. Anyway, so she started bawling.
Is that what led to this?
Yeah, she started bawling about it. And then told her, hey, it's my job to make them stop. That's what I've been doing all along. And she stopped. I mean, she was only 6 years old at that time. She stopped and she looked at me and she said, what? This is your job? You know, you're not doing your job. When will you do your
Oh,
job? And I said, we have
wow.
to do it by 2026. Otherwise, we're all in trouble. So she said, will you promise me that? And I said, okay, I'll promise you that. She said, will you give me a pinky promise? I said, okay, I'll
Okay.
give you a pinky promise. And then she
It's a
said, you can
pinky.
never, ever break a pinky promise. Okay. And then
Oh,
she went to sleep. So the next day I said, okay, I have to start this project, Vegan World 2026, and start talking to people about it. But it's only when I spoke at Rowdy Girl Sanctuary and Jane Wells Mitchell was there in the audience. That's when the project really took off, because she
okay.
said, this is it, I want to help you in any way I can. And so she came
Yeah.
on board, and she's a force of nature. You know that.
Yes. Yes. And hey, if you got Jane behind you and Jane Unchained, then you've got a major advocate and voice. But
Absolutely, yeah. So it really gave this boost to the project.
mhm.
Her,
So what are
both
you guys doing for Vegan World 2026? I mean, now we're in the midst of COVID
mhm.
in 2020. How are you navigating that and still keeping your pinky promise?
Yeah, actually, we use the framing of a caterpillar turning to a butterfly. Okay,
Mhm.
that's what we are going through as a species. So we have been in the caterpillar phase, and now COVID-19 has put us in the chrysalis phase, so the caterpillar. So it's happening on time, right? Put us in the chrysalis phase so that we can think about what we are doing, and then decide how are we going to behave when we come out of this. Are
Mhm.
we going to still continue doing the same thing that causes pandemics, which is keep
Yeah.
chopping up animals, and inviting pandemics into our lives, or
Yeah.
are we going to change, right? And
The
it's up to each
question
one of
is,
us.
are we
Yeah.
going to even have the choice? I think before this pandemic, your message was we need to make a decision and we need to stop what we're doing. But it's almost as if Mother Nature is imposing on us the decision because we're so out of time.
Right. Yeah. I see this as a part of a much larger movement that's happening, not just among
Mhm.
human beings, but among all life. The
Yeah.
animals are coming together. The animals are delivering all these viruses to us and saying, stop it. And I mean, they've been saying, stop it, at a faster pace, right? So the pandemics are happening like, much, much faster than they used to. So
Mhm.
it is literally the animals are telling us, stop it. And we are not
Mhm.
yet listening. People are still pretending that slaughterhouses are critical infrastructure. I mean, we can see
Yeah.
through that, can we not? Can we not see through that and say this is garbage? I mean, they're lying to us. Slaughterhouses are not critical infrastructure. We really don't need that stuff, right?
No. And it's basically a murder house where we're taking beings and we're murdering them and dismantling them and taking them away from their families. And then we are serving them as food without any consideration or respect of their lives or what they've gone through. And then we're digesting them and literally treating them like shit because that's what we're doing to them and we're turning them into. It's a really bad movement. And we are so disconnected as a society and culturally. I It's almost like you feel helpless and hopeless in getting the message out to the masses who are not already part of the movement, who haven't woken up.
Yeah.
How are you reaching those other people that might be receptive, but it's easy to talk to vegans because you're already well known in this circle.
Mhm.
Cowspiracy, Prayer for Compassion, all like well known vegan documentaries you're connected to. How do you get your message out to others that might watch this show on Facebook in a shared group that may not have tuned in to Jane Unchained? How do you talk to them?
Well, we have to go to them and talk to them from their perspective and what is
Mm-hmm.
important to them. So, like, we are going to the peace movement. We are part of the peace movement's 11-day program that's going to happen from September 11th through 21st. It's called the 11 Days of Global Unity. And so we are hosting the vegan Zoom room
That's
during the
nice.
peace movement. And so 11 days, there are 11 themes, and every one of those themes is connected with veganism. So we are pointing out to them how veganism helps them achieve their objectives, and then they become open to it, right? So, and Jane has agreed to have the lunch break live during those 11 days, and then host it,
Okay.
so that they will all see how you can cook vegan food and eat that, right? And still be healthy. So it's about reaching everyone else who is on a similar path, who are also climbing up the mountain, but from different sides, and going to them and showing them and working with them, helping them achieve their objectives through veganism. So this way, they see that veganism is also part of the same social justice movement.
Yeah.
That is raising us all up to the top of the mountain. And it's easy for them to do it.
I love when you said in the past, I heard you say that there are so many people who don't realize they're vegan, that they are a vegan heart. And I think that's super profound, because there are so many people out there who don't want to be judged for not eating a vegan lifestyle, so they can become defensive. But your approach of saying, but you already are vegan, you have a vegan heart, you're showing compassion, you're showing empathy. Veganism is a social justice movement of compassion, of empathy. It's not necessarily an animal rights movement. It's a movement of being awake. It's a movement of saying, I'm awake enough to realize I don't want to eat an animal, because I don't want to rob them of their life and their family and their right to thrive on this planet as an earthling, just like we have that right to thrive. And I think that's such a valuable approach for people who are maybe veg curious or spiritual or compassionate and empathetic, but have just disconnected. Kind of like you said, you disconnected from dairy in the beginning. It wasn't until later on that you had your aha moment.
Right. Yeah.
So
it's the same with all of us, we all have our aha moments, and it's about enabling each one of us to have that aha moment where we see that eating animals is not in alignment with who we really are, because that's the epic question I ask people. I ask them, would you deliberately hurt an innocent animal unnecessarily? And they all say no. And even those who do it will say no, because they want to pretend like they wouldn't do that, right? So everyone says no. And then I tell them, then you're vegan. That's who you are, because that's the definition of veganism.
Right.
So there is nothing to be ashamed of and nothing to fight about, We are all in this together. We are all coming home to our divine feminine. Okay, so the masculine is over. We are done with all this destruction, and we cannot continue anymore. We know that. Nature is telling us you can't continue anymore. So we are now coming home to our divine feminine, and then taking care of the planet. It'll become like we'll become a caregiver species. See, we are the only species that has done that is able to adapt so well, right? Because we went from Africa to everywhere in the world, and we figured out how to live there.
Right.
So to do that, we were originally a prey species, because we can't run too fast, we cannot climb trees too well, we don't have big claws, we don't have we have hardly any weapons, we don't have big teeth. So we were easy prey for the predators of that era, right? 500,000 years ago. And it's only when we discovered fire and we started making tools, we started sharpening implements and using weapons, that we became a predator species.
Right.
Okay. And now we are the biggest predator species, the top predator species on the planet. We can kill anything. We are so powerful, right? Every other species is terrified of us. And we're going around killing them. And we have the power to kill them all off if we want to. Right?
And kill ourselves too, and the planet. That goes back to it's like we're so powerful, and that's where free will comes in, to use your power for good or for bad, because mismanaging your power does not diminish your power, and we're powerful.
Right. And so we see what happens when we mismanage power. We see that happening all around us. We have all these powerful people who are really mismanaging themselves. And you can see what the impact is.
Destruction.
So now we know, yes, destruction is what's happening, right? And so now we know that if we continue in our current path, we are going to destroy ourselves and the planet. And knowing that, we have to ask, how do we adapt? How do we change? How do we transform ourselves? And that's the vegan movement. The vegan movement is born of this need to adapt. Okay. So it is nature telling us, nature showing us, look, you can live without hurting animals. And we had to figure that out by, discovering vitamin B12. So before we discovered vitamin B12, all we knew is that if you stop eating animals, you're going to get sick. Right? So we knew that. In fact, Gandhi tried to go vegan 100 years ago, and he couldn't do it. After 2 years of going vegan, he felt sick and ill, and his doctor told him, drink some milk and you'll be better. And sure enough, he drank some milk and he was better. And he thought, oh my God, I have to keep drinking milk. Okay, so that was the conclusion he came to. Because he probably wasn't getting enough B12.
Maybe,
right?
Yeah.
Maybe, we don't know, right? But now we
know that, I was raised vegan and never drank milk and, never really had a deficiency. Every now and then I go for a B12 shot just because, but I don't know. I think everybody responds differently.
Right.
And
yeah.
obviously, we know that vitamin B12 is something that is of animal source, but
it's not an animal source. Actually, it is actually a soil source.
Right, but it comes to us through the animals by eating them.
Right, because the animals eat the food without washing the food. Right. We wash our food before eating it, and that's why we don't eat soil. Like my granddaughter, she belongs to the Kimel Autumn tribe. She's 1/4 Native American, and in her tribe, they used to have a ritual where every month they would have a ceremony, and everyone will eat some soil. Okay, to indicate that they are part of the soil. And maybe that's how they got their vitamin B12, because they were vegan. They were basically eating the three sisters. I mean, not that they were strictly vegan. I'm sure if they caught an animal, they would eat that animal. But their main food was corn, squash, and beans. The three sisters. That's what they're growing, and they are the original farmers of this area, right? And they knew how to keep the soil going. And so we have literally taken away their land and we have messed it up. We turned that into a desert, But anyway, that's our civilization. Our civilization is about mining, right? Industrial civilization is about mining everything, mining the soil, extracting nutrients from it, and turning it into money.
Right.
And so it's our civilization that needs to transform and actually adopt all the techniques and ideas that the indigenous community had already developed. So we have all the know-how that we really need, okay, to become a sustainable civilization. So we have all the tools and the know-how right now. It's, do we want to do it or not?
So
that is the question.
You have the system that you've come up with to be able to do it by 2026. And I'm sure that a lot of people, I know I get this kind of feedback, so I'm sure you've been faced with it. Farmers and people whose livelihoods and jobs depend on animal agriculture. What is the system that you have in place in order to ensure that jobs and the system of the economy can continue and that we're not leaving them out in the cold?
Well, look at the way we talk about jobs and the economy today, right? So we talk about everyone has to go earn a living.
Right.
Right? Which is normal for us. Everyone has to go earn a living. Now, what did we say in the Declaration of Independence? We said that we have been given an inalienable right to life by our Creator. So if you have an inalienable right to life, why do you have to earn a living?
By taking life.
No, when we say you have to earn a living, you're saying if we don't do what the master says, you are not entitled to live. Earn a living means that you are doing something in order to be alive. Okay? So that means you really don't have an inalienable right to life. So we have implemented something that is the exact opposite of what we said. So we implemented something which is actually a colonial phrase.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Earning a living is a colonial phrase, which means that we have all been colonized. We are all colonized still. Someone is telling us, someone with money is telling us, if you don't do what I tell you, I'm going to give you zero and you're going to starve to death. Okay? So you have to earn a living. So everyone is taught to earn a living today. Now imagine a system in which you really do have an inalienable right to life. How would you build that system? How would you build what you said you were going to build? I would say, then money has to be distributed automatically to every one of us. So universal basic income has to be fundamental to the new system. Okay. Now, when you do that, then automatically all the jobs that no one wants to do will have to go away because no one will do it. No one wants to work in a slaughterhouse, so the slaughterhouses will have to go away. So this is why I say that in a system with universal basic income, it has to be a vegan world. It's only in a vegan world can you have universal basic income. Because no one is going to work in a slaughterhouse when they have enough to eat, enough to live on. If you have universal basic income that gives you a roof over your head and you're able to get your food, then why would you go work in a slaughterhouse? Right.
Right.
So you'll only
especially now with COVID, right?
Yeah.
Especially with, slaughterhouse workers are dying. They're the largest COVID outbreaks. And there was just an article in Fox News about chicken that was packaged and was infected with COVID. So now the meat's infected with COVID. So, and what's worse is our government has literally taken away workers' rights at slaughterhouses, that now they have no rights. They cannot sue for wrongful death. They cannot sue for being injured on the job because we have an executive order now that has deemed them critical infrastructure, which means any legal action will be thrown out in summary judgment. So we have not only do we not value life of animals in slaughterhouses, we now do not value as a country the workers who are slaughtering the animals for the food on your plate. Vicious cycle.
Yeah, not only are we not valuing the life of the people who are working in slaughterhouses, we're not valuing the life of the people who are eating that food that we know is going to cause them diseases. Right, and they're going to suffer from diabetes, heart disease, stroke, cancer, and they're going to die a miserable death. We know that, and yet we tell people you have to eat it. I mean, we have the USDA telling people that you have to have 3 servings of dairy a day, even though they know that most people of color are lactose intolerant. Okay. So we have an USDA that's telling us that lactose intolerant people have to consume 3 servings of dairy a day. So what is their objective? Their objective is to simply make money for the dairy industry, not to take care of our health. Okay. So they are making, people of color, children of color drink this dairy and they're going to be sick in school. And then we tell them, hey, look, they're not earning enough. I mean, they're not getting enough grades, right? Because they're most of the time in the bathroom. What do you want? What do you expect? So this is the problem we face, right? We have an institution. We have institutionalized lying, blatant lying on behalf of corporations, okay? And we know that they're lying. We can actually prove that they're lying, and yet they're not telling us the truth still.
So I like this idea, of a universal basic income. What are you doing to try to get something like that implemented? And is that something that is, I know it's feasible in terms of practicality and systems, but is this something that you see could actually happen in the near future?
Oh, we have no choice but to implement it. So we have to implement it as a game. So it's a game that we all play, So it's like a video game. Like we all play this game in which we agree, so at least those of us who have choices agree to abide by the rules of the game, right? The rules of the game basically say, here is the income you're going to get, and this income is in a new token, right? And that token, then you can say, I'm going to modulate my behavior based on the tokens that I'm getting. So I
Mhm.
will not buy products that have very large ecological footprint because I don't have enough in my account for that. So it's like a game you play, and we start playing that game. Eventually, we start saying, I really like the new game and not the old game,
So
because
how are
money
we
is
going to
also a game.
implement this though? Like, how are we going to implement this politically? How do you get Congress to buy into this and to make this mandatory?
It actually has to be a grassroots movement. It cannot be
Yeah.
imposed from the top down. If we are going to wait for Congress to do something good for us, I mean, how long have we been waiting for the USDA to tell us that dairy is bad? I mean,
Yeah.
how long have
No,
we been
and
telling them dairy is bad?
I was born and raised vegan a long time ago when vegan
Right,
was not normal. And, I grew up in a time where the food pyramid had meat and dairy as major food groups.
right,
And my teachers in school thought I needed to see a nutritionist. Everybody thought I was going to become so unhealthy. And it wasn't until much later that the USDA was sued and that the food pyramid changed. And only now is it starting to get changed again in terms of the whole ditch your dairy campaigns that are going on. So
right.
it is definitely an evolution, like you said, from grassroots up. You have to believe in what you're doing and stick to it. But this is over 30 years ago that
Right. Right.
with me.
So 30 years ago, I mean, that's when we first discovered. I mean, Dr. Milton Mills wrote about dietary racism. He wrote papers about it. I mean, we knew that, in 1990s, we knew that. And still, we are serving 3 servings of dairy a day to our school children, right?
And the thing is people like dairy. People enjoy it. That's the problem. They don't want to give it up.
Well, I mean, it's one thing to say people like dairy because we hook them on it, right? Which is what we are doing.
We did.
And then,
That's true.
And then we pretend that it's necessary and we hook them on it. I mean, if the USDA was telling us all the truth, people would not be drinking that stuff because they know they're going to get sick.
And
right?
the reality is that trends are changing. People that eat dairy still now, when they go to the grocery store, they're not buying the dairy. They're buying the cashew milk, the almond milk, and the alternatives. Right. And I've actually, during COVID, I've been doing a lot of this online grocery shopping where they deliver to your door and the shopper texts you when they're doing the shopping. And about a week ago, the shopper texted me. I was asking for the vegan hot dogs and the vegan burgers and all the vegan cheeses and the vegan cream cheese. And they were in the meat section and in the dairy section of the store. And they said, they don't carry this here. This stuff doesn't exist. And I'm like, no, you're in the wrong section of the store. The vegan meat and the vegan dairy is by the produce section. And they were like, what? And then sure enough, they found it. They took a screenshot. They sent it to me on text. I'm like, yes. And so I'm like, on the screenshot, I'm like, I'll order that. I'll have that. I'll have the cream cheese. And the shopper dropped it off at my door. And they were like, I had no idea that all this stuff existed. It's not in the meat and dairy section. The only thing that's by the dairy section is the milk. So they're aware of the milk. They've been buying the milk. But now the shopper's like, next time I go grocery shopping, I'm going to go to the produce section to buy the vegan cream cheese and the vegan cheese. And I'm going to give this stuff a try. So I almost wonder if the shelf space in the stores should be changed, because it's not intuitive to have, and I don't know how it is where you are, but I go to Publix in Florida. And in Publix in Florida, where it is in the store is not intuitive for someone that might be looking for the alternatives who's not quite vegan yet. Vegans know that it might be in the produce section, but non-vegans, they're going to go straight to the meat section or straight to the dairy section.
Right. Yeah, and in some of our supermarkets here, the vegan meats are in the meat section. Like Beyond Meat is in the meat section.
See, I think that's good. That's good. It's giving them the chance. I mean, in a way, energetically, I don't like that because I don't really want my food by a dead animal. But I think in terms of marketing, it's good because that's how people are going to shift. People who are not strict vegans, people who are not there yet, they're going to get curious if it's in their realm of consciousness and they see it. They'll wake up.
Yeah, I think, I also see that one of the most important things that vegans need to do together as a community is to make sure that healthy vegan food is easily available to everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
That should be one of our fundamental goals as a community, is to make sure that healthy vegan food is available to anyone who wants it at a very low price. Because, I mean, I did some calculations. Even if you go to food deserts, right? If you can get one person with a SUV to go and do shopping for you at Costco, and you cook as a community, if you cook as a community, the average meal cost would be around 50 cents for a healthy meal. Okay?
Yeah.
No matter, even if you have to drive 10 miles to get to the Costco or 15 miles to get to the Costco, you can still cook and create a healthy meal with all the nutrients that you could possibly need for about 50 cents per meal. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's our estimate cost,
I think that part of going vegan and having a vegan world would be for the government to stop these government bailouts of meat and dairy, where the demand's going down, and start doing the bailouts to bail out the farmers so they can repurpose their properties, so they can start creating the soy, the almonds, the peas, etc., the corns that we could use in order to have a cheaper vegan end product. Because with all the bailouts and the government subsidies, we are making meat so cheap and affordable when the demand is not even there anymore. But yet we're still giving billion-dollar bailouts to keep it affordable and cheap, because it's so ingrained in our system. But yet it's so backward and it's so inefficient. That is the thing. It is the most inefficient food supply. We have world hunger because of it. We're ruining our environment. The animals are consuming so much more food than they actually produce for humans to eat. And all around, we're destroying our planet.
Well, you see, the trouble for them is that if they start subsidizing plant foods and basically helping farmers transition, they'll have to figure out how to transition the pharmaceutical industry people. They have to figure out how to transition the military industrial complex. You see, everything has to change. There are so many people working on fixing your unnecessary diseases, right? Like diabetes and heart disease and cancer and so on. And they will all lose their jobs too if the government starts subsidizing plant foods, right? So they're looking at it from their perspective and saying, we've already got this mess going and we have to keep growing this mess, because that's how we have created this colonial system of telling people you all have to earn a living, and we have to keep that story going, right? Whereas if we now have a plant-based system and everyone has universal basic income, then there won't be all these doctors. You don't need all these cardiologists. You don't need all these oncologists who are treating cancer. You won't need all these people working in military, who are building all these weapons and then junking them every 5 years and building new weapons. I mean, this entire system of normalized violence has to become a system of normal non-violence, right?
That reminds me, but I want to pull up what you sent me, because that's on there. The 7 core shifts. Right. Normalize violence to normal non-violence.
Right. So we are in the middle of the greatest transformation in human history, because we are going to go from a predator species to a caregiver species. And I mean, from going extinct, we are going to transform, because we have no choice. It's like we are on the edge of a cliff, right? We are saying, do you want to go back or do you want to keep going forward and fall off the cliff? And obviously, we want to go back, and we're going to recreate the Eden that we came from, right? And to do that, we have to call ourselves something different, because we call ourselves Homo sapiens sapiens, which means wise twice. And I've never met a truly wise person going around saying I'm wise twice, right? I'm wise.
I'm wise. Okay, wise ass.
Exactly. So we have to call ourselves something different. So I'm saying, let's call ourselves Homo ahimsa, which is a term that Judy Carman came up with. And she has actually written a book called Homo ahimsa, which is a combination of a Latin word and a Sanskrit word. So it symbolizes that we are coming together as a species around the planet. Okay, and ahimsa means non-violence. Right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, ahimsa. The hand.
It means non-violent.
Yeah. Yeah. But isn't it like the hand sign? You'll see the ahimsa sign as a hand.
Right. That's the sign of Jainism. Yeah. And so ahimsa really literally means ahimsa. Himsa is deliberate cruelty. Means the exact opposite of deliberate
Oh,
cruelty, which
okay.
is total kindness, right? And so the 7 core shifts that are part of that transformation is going from all the isms, speciesism, colonialism, racism, ableism, and patriarchy. And each one of us, every group is fighting for one of these, right? But I'm saying we all have to come together and fight together so that we create a system of where veganism is normal, is the foundation, and radical sacredness is normal. So we treat every life as sacred, not just every human life, but every life is sacred. And, the earth is sacred. So it's radical sacredness. And from
Yeah.
diseases and divisions for humanity to health and unity for humanity. Because right now we are being divided up and made to fight each other. And we are all being given diseases so that people can be fixed. And that's how they make money off of us. Okay. And from destruction and pollution of the planet, which is what's happening today, to remediation and regeneration for the planet. That should become normal. From death and cruelty to animals, which is now normal, to love and kindness for animals. And from a culture of consumption, we need to go to a culture of compassion. From a mindset of scarcity, we need to go to a mindset of abundance. And what I'm claiming is that everything on the left-hand side that's making us do this messy stuff is driven by our money system. The money-driven economy is driving the system of normalized violence. Because the game of money, the rules of the game are set up in such a way that we have to compete with each other. We have to fight each other, and we have to fight with the animals. It's basically a system of war and military and dominance and violence. That's the kind of money game we are playing. So we are coming up with a new game. It's really like a game in which we automatically belong in the game. You don't have to fight to get your money. You are going to get so you already belong. Okay, so you tell everyone who was born you belong, and then you say, what are you going to give as your gift? So it becomes a mindset of abundance. You take care of the basic needs of humanity. Take care of the food, the shelter. You make sure that everyone gets what they need to thrive on this planet, and then each one comes up and says, "This is my gift. This is what I want to contribute." Right. So you have a list of tasks that need to be done.
Right?
Yeah, that's the service. It's a service-driven economy, right? And so we can create a game like that. And all I'm saying is, we have the imagination to do that. We have technology to do that now. It's a very distributed game that we need to be playing. So we have the technology to do that, and we have all the know-how that we need to do that. So it's happening at the right time. Okay, that we have everything we need to create this new game and start playing it. So what are we waiting for? Let's do it. Okay, that's the idea. And do we really need 6 years to do that? I don't think so. I think we can do it even faster than that if we put our minds to it. But the 6 years is like a lifeline. So if we do it in 6 years, we will be able to thrive. That's my estimate, right? But if we don't, I don't know if we're going to thrive or not. So let's do it. What are we waiting for?
Right.
So to me, veganism is also an infection. The greatest transformation in human history is also an infection. When we talk about that, we infect people with it. And they say, hey, I want the greatest transformation in human history too. I want to be part of the 7 core shifts. And it becomes part of their lingo, right?
And where can people get these 7 core shifts that I just put up on the screen? How can people see that? Is that on a website anywhere? Where can we get that?
Right. It's on the homepage of our website on climatehealers.org. If you just go to the homepage, you'll see the 7 core shifts. And what you just showed is taken straight from the homepage.
Okay. Along with the white papers and a whole lot of other really good information that's there.
Right.
So what's next in order for you to achieve your pinky promise to your granddaughter?
It's actually building coalitions. What is next is building coalitions, not just among vegan organizations, but also among other social justice organizations, building coalitions with them, getting them to also support the 7 core shifts. And for that, we really need to go to them and start talking to them about how veganism is going to help their movement. It's not about, you have to take up veganism because I said so, because it's good for us.
Right.
No. It has to be good for them. It is good
Right.
for them because eating animal foods causes forests to be destroyed. When forests are destroyed in the Amazon, indigenous tribes are being displaced. And when indigenous tribes are being displaced, we are telling them their culture is inferior to our culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is colonialism 101. When you tell someone your culture is inferior to my culture and you need to get out of the way so I can destroy this forest and grow my cows, that's called colonialism, right? So when we eat animal foods, we are supporting colonialism. When we eat animal foods, we are supporting racism, right? Because where do these factory farms, where are they situated? Near people of color. Who's working in these factory farms? They're people of color.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Nutritional racism is a real thing.
It's a real thing, right? So racism is
Yeah.
built into this. And then
Yeah.
ableism is built into it because slaughterhouses are where people are going to get injured more often than
Right.
not. And as soon as they get injured, they're kicked out because they don't have any rights. They're literally mostly undocumented immigrants who are working there.
Yeah, I know. It's a form of slavery. It's a form of slavery and indentured servitude. Yes.
Exactly. Yep. Right. So ableism is built in and patriarchy is built in because what do we do to the animals? We are really abusing the feminine of the animal, right? To get more animals out of them. So it's the outright abuse of the feminine. And people, they even go and, people have the job of going out there and impregnating animals day in and day out. And then they impregnate animals with their hands, day in and day out. And then they come home and they're expected to be kind and compassionate with their wives and children.
That doesn't work out well. Exactly. Yeah, it carries over. It turns into violence in the home. I mean, suicide, aggression. Yeah.
Yeah. So I say that speciesism.
Ahimsa.
Yeah, basically, speciesism involves within it colonialism, racism, ableism, and patriarchy. It's all built in. So it's really one big ism, right? And eating animal foods is supporting all of these isms simultaneously. So this is why I say veganism is the foundation of this new system. And that's why people don't like veganism, right? This is why they keep fighting it. Our institutions fight it. No one wants to talk about it. The Democrats don't want to talk about it. Republicans don't want to talk about it. Everyone goes around pretending that they love burgers, right? Because they are part of this system. They have to keep this system going. System of normalized violence.
It's so normalized and it's so ingrained that people who even wouldn't want to contribute are just going out and contributing and getting a burger because they think it's like going to the polls. People think, oh, I'm not going to go vote because my vote's not going to matter. But it does matter. If you go to Burger King and you order a burger versus ordering the Impossible Whopper, it matters because Burger King will see the change in the demand and they're going to stop killing more animals and they're going to carry more of the Impossible Whopper because somebody got veg curious and said, you know what, on this day, I'm going to order the plant-based alternative and then I'm going to like it. And then Burger King's not going to be able to keep it in stock. So,
yeah. The more people do that, then it becomes harder and harder for the government to keep subsidizing an unnecessary industry, right? They'll have to answer.
I don't know, and I don't know because I don't go to Burger King, but what is the price difference between ordering the burger and the Impossible Whopper? Is it the same or is it different?
I have no idea because I don't go to Burger King either.
But this just came to me right now. It's kind of like an epiphany thing because in a way, if they're charging more money for the Impossible Whopper, I would say that that's discrimination. That's discrimination saying you have an extra tax to pay based on your moral decision to not eat meat and to choose a more compassionate food choice. You shouldn't be charged extra for that because the government's subsidizing dairy and not subsidizing the kinder choices. If anything, and I don't know what's happening, I would love to know this answer. I'm going to look it up after the show. But if anything, if the government subsidies are subsidizing the Burger King meat so much, that subsidy should carry over to the Impossible Whopper so they can offer it for the same price as the other burgers there, because people who go to Burger King are people sometimes, many times, of lower income households who cannot afford the more expensive food. So they're going to choose the cheaper burger just because it comes down to economics, when maybe they would have preferred the Impossible Whopper, the plant-based option, but they're not going to go for it because they don't want to spend the extra dollar.
Right.
That's discrimination.
Oh, that's discrimination is rampant in the system. I mean, it's everywhere. And it's just we are opening our eyes to it right now. It's been there all along. This is why I say the community in these food deserts have to come together and start creating their own food. They can cook their own food, and if they cook their own food, it'll be a lot cheaper than going to Burger King. It'll be a lot cheaper because 50 cents you can make a healthy meal. Tell me which Burger King you can get a healthy meal for 50 cents. Right? So there is no fast food place that would offer anything good for that, that kind of money.
Yeah.
So we have a choice with our money, what we do with it. That's a vote that we are making every day.
So people are writing here that the plant-based options is usually $1 to $2 more. Someone else says, I've done the research and they charge a lot more for the Impossible Burger. Okay, red flags, everyone. That's a problem. So I think that the only way it's going to, Impossible Whopper, $8.48, no, a Whopper, $8.48, Impossible Whopper, $9.28. Someone just posted. Watch the trailer. They're trying to kill us. Yes, they're trying to kill us. I had John Lewis on here recently, so he's also great to talk to. So it's about $1 difference in Boynton Beach. Someone else just said. Dina. Thanks, Dina. Thanks, Amira. Thanks, everybody, for pitching in there. So as a lawyer, I can tell you, just thinking about this, I mean, it won't change unless somebody brings a lawsuit and says, hey, I feel discriminated against. And then they're going to say, well, you don't have a right to feel discriminated against because veganism is not a constitutional class. But I think that we need to really look at the big picture here, because veganism should be a constitutionally protected class, a non-religious but moral class, just like our Civil Rights Act now, expands way past racism. It does race, religion, sex, gender equality, marriage equality, disability. In veganism really does need to become a protected class, because then we will have rights to say, you can't charge me extra. You can't charge me extra because I'm a recognized class, and therefore strict scrutiny applies. It's like pay equality in the workforce. You can't pay, you shouldn't be paying a male more than a female. It's not equal pay. I mean, this is a bigger issue, frankly. I really think this is a big issue. The fact that vegan options, like if you go to Starbucks and you want to have the soy milk instead of the skim milk, you're paying $1 more for soy milk, or 80 cents more. That's not fair. We're paying a tax for being kind. And then our tax dollars are going to government bailouts. Not fair. We got to do something about this.
Well, you found something for yourself to do now, right? That's going to be bigger.
Somebody needs to bring the lawsuit. I think this is going to be a process. This is going to be a process, because the only way the laws change is if there's a lawsuit that creates the laws to change, and then there's a decision and a holding, and then it becomes, the law. But I think that there's two things here that need to happen. One, we need to become a recognized constitutional class. And then two, we need to have someone needs to have standing to bring the lawsuit, right? Someone who's a vegan, who's recognized as, an ethical vegan, who then feels discriminated against because they have to pay more money in order to carry out their moral and ethical chosen choices, as if anyone who's religious would want to do. Because after all, veganism is something we all practice religiously, often more than we practice our own, religion we were born into. For me, that would be Judaism, right? Judaism is something I was born into. Veganism is something I identify with and practice religiously. Judaism is something I, might go to a family dinner or to temple on a high holiday. That's it. It's a cultural thing. Veganism is my identity.
Right. And I think it is a protected class in Canada, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, Vegans is it already?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have to look
it's
into
worth
that.
Looking into what they've done. Yeah.
Well, then we should be copying that here in the United States into our Constitution, and then globally as well. It needs to start, governments need to start recognizing veganism as something that needs to be taken seriously.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think they are taking it seriously, but they're trying to fight it. Because it is really counter to the entire system of normalized violence. Because we're saying we don't have to be violent even to animals, So
Right.
that means how can you be violent to each other if you're not violent to animals?
Right. You can't expect our circle of compassion to extend to each other if we cannot extend it to the animals. And likewise, we cannot really expect it to expand to the animals so long as we're killing each other. It's a vicious cycle.
Right. Absolutely.
We got to end it.
It is a complete system of normal non-violence is what we need to get to. So I call it normal non-violence because non-violence is normal for us.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to normalize it. But the violence, you have to normalize it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. Well, really powerful stuff. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share to the world and to groups that might, beyond Jane Unchained, that might watch this interview?
Thank you so much for having me, Carissa. And, I come at it from a position of faith, not hope, because hope to me comes from a position of fear, whereas faith comes from a position of love. This transformation is going to happen, and all work for it to happen. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I love how you come at this from a whole holistic approach. You're just here spiritually, mentally, your granddaughter, what a great story that Pinky Promise tore. And you better not let her down. No pressure. The environmental aspect, you really have some real statistics behind you, and everyone should go to your website, read the white papers. They're really compelling. I love the white paper that I read on the climate change and the opportunity costs and everything that you brought up there. Just brilliantly put together. So we got to get the word out. So the last part of the show, I don't have a guest, but I had on last week. I'm just going to put her up because it is Mrs. Jenny Goldfarb from Unreal Deli. She's certified vegan, and it's exciting news because her Unreal Deli corned beef sandwich is now in, as of today, Veggie Grill locations nationwide.
Awesome.
She's in Veggie Grill, she's in Whole Foods, yes, and she's certified vegan by my company, B-Veg. There's our mark on her packaging. So we're super excited to be part of that movement with her. And I think it's important that all of us vegans continue to work together to create a vegan economy and to change the world and to make vegan claims be taken seriously, because just as we discussed on the show about discrimination and vegan costs and how we should be a constitutional class, the same thing goes for having claims on our packaging that is credible with integrity and legal, because we want the manufacturing facilities to take vegan claims with the same care, concern, and integrity that they would take kosher, halal, organic, food safety, etc. Right now, world's not there, but we're working on it with B-Veg, and we also have a white paper that's going to come out soon. So I think it's just so important to keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully I'll get to talk to you soon in person. It's a pleasure to meet you here. I've idolized you. You've been such a amazing, I was afraid to talk to you, to be perfectly honest. You can ask Paige.
Oh, no.
I was like, I don't know if I can hold my own with him.
No. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. You did wonderful. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, you're just so wise. I think ahimsa, what are Homo sapiens sapien? Wise. That's you. You're wise.
No,
you're very wise. No, you're the ahimsa sapien too. You're both, but you're very wise. So, thank you, Dr. Rao.
You'll never catch me saying that. Thank you.
But I can say it about you.
Sure.
It's different. I can say it about you. You don't have to say it about yourself. It's true. So, anyway, all right. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you, and I'm sure I'll see you again since you're running the Jane Unchained circle of wonderful people.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.